In this video, we're going to demonstrate some new functionality with the EEPT version 4, and we'll look at some of the differences between the version 3 and version 4. In the first part of this video, you won't notice many differences between the version 3 and version 4, but we're going to go ahead and put in the basic information about the client, his farm tract field number, his objectives, and his need for action. Just like with version 3, we need to click the drop-down in cell A21 and select the land uses. In this case, we'll select all resource headers, pasture, and grazed. After our selections are made and we click OK, the CPA52 is filtered to only include the applicable resource concerns for the pasture and graze modifier. The next step in the process is to complete the resource inventories and document the benchmark conditions for each resource concern. So we'll use the drop-down narratives to select the benchmark condition for all the applicable resource concerns. After we have documented all the benchmark conditions, we can go in and describe the no action alternative. The no action alternative is the actions that the client will take if NRCS assistance is not provided. Once we have recorded the description of the no action alternative, we should record the effects of that alternative. Remember to check the Not Meet PC box for any resource concerns that still do not meet planning criteria after the effects of the no action alternative. Continue to document the effects of the no action alternative on all the resource concerns, remembering to check the Not Meet PC box for those that do not meet planning criteria after the effects of the no action alternative. To shorten the CPA 52, the planner may wish to filter the resource concerns to only display those that are required or those that are optional and that are an identified resource concern. So they can click the filter in cell B21. The next step in the planning process, the planner would actually create some alternatives to solve the identified resource concerns. At this point, all of the things that we have demonstrated have been the same as EEPT version 3. In version 3, the planner could use pre-written narratives to describe the alternative and select narratives to describe the effects of each of those alternatives. In version 4, this is done differently, and the pre-written narratives have been removed. The planner can click on the Enter Practices for Alternatives link. The Select Practices window appears, so we can scroll down to the applicable land use, in this case, the pasture section. The planner can use the drop-down buttons to select up to 8 practices for each alternative. Once practices are selected, the planner may wish to save the list as typical. They can also load typical after it's saved. The spreadsheet already has a typical list for each land use saved, so we're going to click the Load Typical button to load those practices into the alternative. In addition to the typical practices, the planner's alternative included filter strips, so we're going to add that practice to the list. For the second alternative, we're going to load the typical practices and add stream bank stabilization. Once we have all of our practices in each alternative, we're going to click on the Save All Practices and Return to CPA 52 button. The macro does several things when we click on that button. First, it returns us to the CPA 52, and it populates the alternative with a list of practices that were selected in the Select Practices window. It also copies the effects of all practices to each resource concern for the alternatives. And it auto-fits the row heights so that all the narratives are visible in each row. The planner should review each effect narrative to make sure it is applicable. The narratives can also be edited to add or remove parts of the narrative that apply or do not apply. The planner should also consider the narrative effects and determine if the effects meet planning criteria. If, in their opinion, the effects do not meet the planning criteria, they should check the Not Meet PC box. The planner should continue to review all the identified effects and edit those as needed. Although version 4 automatically adds effects for all the resource concerns and the human considerations, the planner must still document the effects on the special environmental concerns. There's been a couple of things that have been added to version 4 to make that a little easier. First off, the planner may wish to expand the columns so that they can see more of the pre-written narrative when they're selecting it. However, if they expand those columns, they need to be sure to reduce those columns before they print the spreadsheet. Another change in version 4 that has been made to speed up the process of documenting the effects. In version 3, there were 2 drop-downs for each set of special environmental concerns. One that was may affect or no effect, and one that was the narrative. In version 4, these have been combined together, so it will speed up the process, and the planner will only have to select one narrative. The planner should remember to check the box if any of the special environmental concerns need further action. Another change that was made is that sometimes the row heights are not wide enough so that all the narrative can be seen. The planner can still manually adjust the row heights. However, there's been a new button added to auto-fit the row heights to the text contained in the cells. The planner should continue to document the effects on the special environmental concerns and complete the rest of the CPA 52. That covers all the changes with the new CPA 52 EEPT version 4. The planner should complete the rest of the CPA 52 as been done in previous versions. Let's scroll up and take one final look at the CPA 52. Hopefully, these changes with version 4 of the EEPT will continue to streamline the process of completing the environmental evaluation for conservation planning.